As early as December of 2017, many scientists were worried about a wayward Arctic current that could cool the climate in Europe. And yes, if you're up to speed, we're talking about the Beaufort Gyre, a key Arctic ocean current, which began acting strangely about 5 years ago. And back then, scientists said it may be on the verge of discharging a huge amount of ice and cold fresh water that could kick off a period of lower temperatures in Northern Europe. And tonight, we're going to delve into the topic. As early as last year, articles like this made the headlines. Scientists spot warning signs of the Gulf Stream collapse. A shutdown of the Gulf Stream would have devastating global impacts and must not be allowed to happen. Now, how are they going to stop it? That's the question. Let's talk about the scientific facts, and let's forget all of the propaganda we just read. Now, the slowdown or the shutdown of the AMOC, which is the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, is a key part of global ocean circulation and plays a crucial role in regulating global climate. Over the 21st century, climate change will very likely weaken the AMOC. No, it won't. Climate change has no effect on the AMOC. The AMOC is only affected by the Beaufort Gyre. And this is why the science is a little squishy. Because they've introduced propaganda and they overlaid it with the facts. And understanding more about the AMOC, or the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, and its tipping points could enable early warning, giving time to take action. Another ridiculous thought, as if we were going to shift a global ocean current, which spans thousands of miles to depths of thousands of feet, which takes hundreds of years to alter. We're just going to do it, like change the climate. We're going to tax you, and we're going to save the AMOC. This is how narcissistic and, embarrassing modern science has become. Because it's not based on facts. It's based on fantasy and propaganda. But tonight we're going to separate the two, and we're only going to share you the science, which has nothing to do with climate change. It has everything to do with natural climate variability and patterns of cycles that have been going on time immemorial. Now, recent advances in monitoring and modeling are enabling more confident projections of future changes in the AMOC, and they have nothing to do with human-based carbon dioxide production. Because CO2, by the way, is plant food, and we need more of it. The more CO2 we have, the greener the earth will be, period. The real pollution is not carbon dioxide, which is plant food. It's all the other toxins that the major multinational corporations have made a big play in the last 10 years to make you forget about. And you're just worried about plant food and not real pollution, which is unfortunate. But tonight we're going to talk about the climate catastrophe that will result if the Beaufort Gyre is released, and it appears as if it's releasing now. Now, we've all seen the movie The Day After Tomorrow, and you're looking at an image of it. And in the movie, if the Beaufort Gyre gets released and subsequently the AMOC gets shut down, this is the premise of the movie. The only problem is that in the movie, about 2 or 3 days after the AMOC shuts down, the entire Earth is covered in ice. And that is not the reality. But the reality is that people in Europe will suffer. Now, let's talk about the actual science now that we've debunked the propaganda. Freshwater outflow from the Beaufort Sea could alter global climate patterns. Fact. And this paper coming out in 2021, February, from Los Alamos Labs, is probably the most concise, up-to-date piece of literature on the topic. Now, the Beaufort Sea the Arctic Ocean's largest freshwater reservoir, has increased its freshwater content by 40% over the last 2 decades. And this is putting global climate patterns at risk, because a rapid release of this freshwater into the Atlantic Ocean could wreak havoc on the delicate climate balance that dictates global climate. Now, a freshwater release of this size into the subpolar North Atlantic could impact a critical circulation pattern called the AMOC, or Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. This circulation has a significant influence on Northern Hemisphere climate, according to Wilbert Weiser, a Los Alamos National Lab author on the project. In a joint modeling study by Los Alamos researchers and collaborators from the University of Washington, dove into the mechanics surrounding this scenario. The team initially studied a previously released event that occurred between 1983 and 1995. And using virtual dye tracers and numerical modeling, the researchers simulated the ocean circulation and followed the spread of the freshwater release. Now, people have already spent a lot of time studying why the Beaufort Sea freshwater has gotten so high in the past few decades. But that doesn't really matter, does it? What they really care about is where the freshwater goes. And we think that that is the most important problem. Now, the study was the most detailed and sophisticated of its kind, lending numerical insights into the decrease of salinity in specific ocean areas, as well as the routes of freshwater release. Now, the experiment unexpectedly showed that most of the freshwater reaches the North Atlantic, or the Labrador Sea, through a narrow set of passages between Canada and Greenland called the Canadian Archipelago. The traditional view had mostly considered liquid freshwater transport in the form of sea ice via the Fram Strait, which is a passage between Greenland and Svalbard. The freshwater release in the study was shown to significantly reduce the salinities of the Labrador Sea. A freshening of 0.2 practical salinity units on the western shelves and 0.4 practical salinity units locally in the Labrador Current. However, the model release was based on freshwater volumes of the past, from the 1990s, not the current volume that is significantly greater. In fact, more than 23,300 cubic kilometers, owing to an unusually persistent circulation pattern called the Beaufort Gyre, and to unprecedented sea ice decline, which is not actually true. But it is in the Los Alamos paper because they needed funding. Now, if this very large volume of fresh water is released into the North Atlantic, let's say this year or next, the impacts could be correspondingly very large as well. The exact impact is unknown. But in this model, they study the previous release events and offer pictures into the potential impacts of a future larger release. Now, the model used in the study was also partly developed at Los Alamos. It's called the Energy Exascale Earth System Model version 0, or E3S MV0, which incorporates Los Alamos Lab's Parallel Ocean Program and its powerful sea ice model, CICE. Now, the work is a great example of Los Alamos's innovative ocean modeling approaches with a multidisciplinary approach. And it also demonstrates the lab's leadership in high-latitude climate science through projects such as the High-Latitude Application and Testing of Earth Systems, or HILAT-RASM. The paper will be linked below, and it really doesn't give us any particular conclusions or predictions on when the release is. And it just states that if it does happen, well, the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation, or overturning circulation, may shut down. Now, we knew this as early as 2015. In the paper I'm showing you here by Manocharian and Spall in October of 2015, they categorized the massive nature of the freshwater content in the Gyre, and that's 7 years ago. And they also explored the key physical processes affecting the accumulation and release of freshwater. And what they determined is that the buildup and release in the Beaufort Gyre is constrained by mesoscale eddies up in the Arctic Sea. And now a new paper coming out in the spring of this year shows that spinning ice flows reveal an intensification of the mesoscale eddies in the Western Arctic Ocean. Now, to put that in layman's terms, what the scientists found back in 2015, which was reiterated by Los Alamos last year, is that the freshwater buildup releases by mesoscale eddies. That's what they know. And according to this new paper, upper ice eddies are prevalent in the major circulation system in the Western Arctic Ocean, the Beaufort Gyre. And these eddies are intensifying. So the release of the Beaufort Gyre is imminent. It may be now, could be this year, maybe next, but it's going to happen very soon because this is the longest time of no release that we've ever witnessed with the largest volume of fresh water. So this could be the big one. They found in this paper that the eddy field is strongly correlated to the strength of the gyre on interannual timescales, and that provides the major observational evidence consistent with the hypothesis of the gyre equilibration by eddies. The inferred trends over the past 2 decades signify that the gyre and its eddy field have been intensifying as the sea ice cover has been declining. Now, the problem with that statement is that sea ice is at its highest extent in 7 years. And this paper was just written this year. So in order to get funding, they have to lie in the paper, which is not going to help you or I figure out what's actually happening or when the gyre is going to be released. Now, according to the results, they imply that with continuing sea ice decline, which is not happening, the eddy field and the Beaufort Gyre will keep intensifying, leading to an enhanced transport of freshwater and biochemical tracers. Well, and the end of the empire in the form of the day after tomorrow, where Europe is plunged into an ice age, basically overnight. And the climate pattern is so severe that millions of people suffer famine and death and unrest come after the gyre releases. Now, none of these papers specifically say when the gyre will release, but based on all the information and the fact that it is now 20,000 cubic kilometers of fresh water, and this modeling using the dye test, well, kids, you know what time it is? Yeah, it's Beaufort Gyre boom time. Any day now. And that means proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance, especially in Europe. We're not here to scare you. We're here to prepare you and punch you in the face with facts. And the facts are in. The Beaufort Gyre is now the largest volume of fresh water ever recorded. And based on all the studies, the mesoscale eddies are intensifying, which lead to the release of the gyre into the Labrador Sea, and then the day after tomorrow. Hope you got something out of the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share this with like-minded people. Ask questions below in the comments, and all the links will be below to everything we discussed. We love you. Be safe.